Northern Uganda, a region that has been racked by one of the world's longest running guerrilla insurgency campaigns. In the early 2000s, it was also faced with a perfect storm of disease. Two forms of deadly trypanosomiasis, or sleeping sickness, were converging. Every year, 500,000 new human cases were detected in Africa, and for those in areas without proper health care, death was inevitable, especially among children. Now, for the first time, the districts where the two disease strains were taking hold have just been declared officially sleeping sickness free for the first time in over 100 years.
They wanted focused attention for all the medical people, all the veterinarians, all the people working in environment, all the leadership in the local governments to work together and come and find solutions of eliminating this problem.
So sleeping sickness in Uganda was a bit like COVID for us today. It was a catastrophe for Uganda for over 100 years. It was a disease that impeded development in Uganda. It was quite an astonishing achievement because it was the first example of One Health in practice in Africa.
And the campaign that brought this about was named Stamp Out Sleeping Sickness. It involved the public and private sector, veterinarians from Edinburgh and Makerere University in Uganda standing shoulder to shoulder with government agencies and human medics. The veterinary health company Ceva Animal Health and IKARE, the charitable arm of Ceva's private equity investors at that time. At the heart of the spread of the disease was the tsetse fly that carried the trypanosomes, organisms that cause sleeping sickness when they bite humans. The university researchers made a vital discovery that domestic cattle were acting as reservoirs for the disease, and the onset of DNA techniques helped them overcome a major diagnostic problem.
We got Trypanosoma brucei, which infects cattle, not people, and Trypanosoma rhodesiense, which infects people and cattle. But to the microscope, they look identical. So till they got DNA working, nobody could tell the difference. That was why all this problem of zoonosis and it was all difficult.
The next stage was to treat vast numbers of cattle to rid them of the parasites and prevent the continued spread of the disease, and a novel approach was adopted.
What was missing was the manpower to help us cover close to 250,000 cattle in a big area of 5 districts which lack the technical capacity because the human resource has been destabilized by the insurgency. So Makerere kindly agreed, and the government of Uganda through the Uganda Trypanosomiasis Control Council gave Makerere permission to deploy the final year students to this program, which was now known as the Stamp Out Sleeping Sickness Program.
So we sent some of the young vets into the field to do some reconnaissance and find out who else was working against sleeping sickness, how many farmers were they. And to cut a long story short, they basically came back and said, there's nothing there. Nobody's doing anything about it. There's no infrastructure, but we think there might be a market. So after some discussions with them and with Ceva, IKARE and Ceva decided that we would let them, we'd give a try to see if they could set up veterinary businesses, full-scale businesses, to complement the few district veterinary officers and see if by selling all of veterinary products, they could then also carry the sleeping sickness products, if I put it that way.
Martin Mitchell of Ceva Animal Health, seen here wheeling in some of those drugs and sprays that were made available to SOS, also played a key enabling role in the campaign and the setting up of the 3V vet businesses.
Even at that time, projects were built and sustainability was always there, but were they really constructed with sustainability in mind? I think one thing that we brought as a private sector, that's Ceva together with our investors IKARE, was a perspective where we knew we would have to exit. And when you know that you're going to leave, you've got to think about your legacy, and you've got to think about how you're going to train people locally so that they are able to deliver whatever you want to achieve. And that's exactly what happened. So looking back now, we have, I think, 5 of the young veterinarians that we trained and we set up in business are still there. Now, that is a virtuous circle if ever I saw one, and that must be the greatest outtake from this whole initiative.
A two-pronged approach was developed by the university research teams. Using Ceva drugs, the cattle were injected to rid them or cleanse them of the parasites that spread the disease to humans. And then another Ceva product, an insecticide, was sprayed onto the animals' lower quarters to keep them free of the tsetse flies and also disease-carrying ticks.
Most people didn't pay for the drugs. They were just given pro bono, I suppose. And so, in a way, they were acting in the public interest as well. You know, they may be a private company, but nonetheless, they did a lot of work which is pro bono.
When we are spraying, we target the limbs.
Veterinary student Patrick Apondo, seen here in 2009 in his original shop, was one of the first 3V vets. Now qualified, he's not only continued his business, but he's opened new vet stores, employing more people, and has expanded the number of full-time jobs in the spray teams he manages.
We have seen a big reduction in sleeping sickness cases over the years, and to the extent that in the whole of last year we did not see cases coming up. So we think our interventions are yielding because they have been able to create that suppression of the cases of sleeping sickness.
We had a meeting of WHO 2 weeks ago. I think Uganda is among those countries, based on what the reports are, who have eliminated sleeping sickness as a public health problem.
It's been a long haul. It's been like a relay. But I think that by putting the vets in place, and they're still there, they've also sort of created new jobs. I think there's a total of close to 400 of these self-employed, which also make that the reach is much larger. And so I think it's been a fantastic journey.
10 years ago, as a company, we committed to become a One Health company. And our experiences through SOS in Uganda really confirmed that that was the right decision. I mean, why is it so important? Well, we know that 3/4 of all human infectious diseases come from animals, and 3/4 of those come from wildlife. So if you look at One Health, if you take out wildlife and biodiversity and these reservoirs, these natural reservoirs of infection that we have, it's not One Health at all, it's 3/4 health. And that's not good enough. I mean, the world health is at stake here. In this case, it was domestic cattle that have become the reservoir of infection, but the principles remain the same, and we have to be more prepared.
We feel proud. We as the 3V vets feel proud of being able to be part of the initiative that has managed to suppress sleeping sickness in humans, as well as creating improvement in animal welfare and the increasing livelihood of the people.
What I'm probably most proud of is that it's an example of a PPP that's worked. It's shown direct benefits to the communities, it's been appreciated by government, but also it's shown the way for other infectious diseases and how we should approach other infectious diseases. But perhaps the most satisfying piece of all is this interplay between all of the different actors. You know, I wouldn't have imagined 25 years ago that I would be working with the private sector and with government in creating something really quite special and effective and sustainable for those communities.
And here we are. So professionally, I'm proud to be associated to having been given the opportunity by the partners who are in the SOS, by the government of Uganda, by everyone we worked with, including the livestock owners, including the people who are being affected by this disease.
It's made my life. If you know, it'll be written on my tombstone. Morgan was very keen on tsetse flies. or more than testiflies and trypanosomes were his thing. R.I.P.